Hi, I'm Cassandra Unger. I'm a white, 30-year-old female whose parents are of Australian and New Zealand descent. I grew up in Sydney, Australia, with both of my parents and one sibling, an older sister. My parents originally wanted 3 children, but they frequently tell me that they realised very early that I was not made to be a middle child. And I would agree. I'm highly competitive, stubborn, emotional, and require a lot of attention. Both my sister and I still live within 15 minutes drive from my childhood home, where my parents still live. Although I did for a period of about 3 years live in Adelaide, halfway across this wide brown land, but I'll get back to that later. We belong to a mid-socioeconomic class, with my dad owning his own plumbing business and my mother working part-time as an aqua aerobics instructor. Although neither of my parents obtained university degrees, these expectations was never questioned by either my sister or I, both completing postgraduate study. As to my life in the church, I have multiple generations of Community of Christ members on both sides of my family tree, often serving with priesthood responsibilities or as pastor. Some of my earliest memories revolve around trying to ride the donkey that resided in the field behind the church as we waited for my mother to finish up a pastor's meeting. I have grown up my whole life with people telling me how much I am like my mother and that I would end up working for the church. I fought both for a long time. However, I have accepted my similarities to my mother whilst mellowing them out with attributes from my father. And although my mother hates it, I now work for the church. This journey so far has resulted in me often trusting other people's opinions on my life decisions over my own. For example, I bought my unit on my father's recommendation. In fact, I'd owned it for 3 months before I even walked into the place. This, I think, is where Adelaide comes in. I was working as a science teacher when I was offered a job to work for the church in Adelaide. Not something I'd ever considered doing before, but someone else told me that they thought this is where I was being called, and like I mentioned above, other people's opinions often mean more to me, so I moved to a city where I had no family, no home, no friends. I knew a handful of church acquaintances, but I had to establish myself, my ministry, and determine who I was outside of everyone that knew me well enough to offer me advice on who I was. This time challenged me and created great growth, as I identified who I was, free of everything I had previously defined myself by. What is right or wrong is a much harder question for me to answer. Previous experience and knowledge shape my decisions. However, I am emotional, and thus a lot of my decisions are made on how I feel about things. I try to be rational, but guilt and fear guide many of my decisions. Thus, if something makes me feel guilty, it normally goes in the wrong category. And as it is clearly my disapproval of my own action or lack of action or potential action. However, there may not always be sound understanding of this disapproval. Confusing, I know. Hence, I don't always trust my own moral compass, and I have a tendency to trust other people more than myself in determining what is right or wrong. Not any other people, but specific people that I respect by their moral character, social awareness, and integrity. Sometimes I have to use a "what would so-and-so do?" Sometimes it may be Jesus, but other times it could be Candace or Rochelle. How are we meant to live together? Last year I was talking to a friend about an upcoming dance scholarship that neither of us were running for, but it's sort of a thing that gets much discussion in my circle, almost in a putting bets on people sort of way. The girl I wanted to win because she was nice. Believe me, this is not always the case in dance circles. Yes, she was an incredible dancer, but to me, she showed compassion and humility. She engaged with people of all abilities. Being nice, really sincerely nice, was something that I'd realised in the last couple of months really mattered to me. The truth was, they didn't even need to be nice to me. They needed to be courteous to me. But nice to those people that I saw were lovely. Those that I respected for their compassion, their inclusivity, and awareness of others. I could admire a person because of their intelligence or skill or creativity, but I was not able to respect a person unless they also showed this compassion, humility, and lack of self-centeredness that I defined as nice. Recently, I met a new friend. Whilst we were waiting to talk to a third friend, I noticed he did this super awkward tuck between the chairs. I noticed because I do it too. At that moment, I knew that we were going to be great friends. It's a deliberate attempt to get out of the way of others. There are some people that have no idea when they're having a conversation that they are blocking a doorway or a walkway or whatever. There are others that, although might be confident people, feel super uncomfortable in a crowd. Not because of the people, but because they feel that they are in the way. They are inconvenienced someone else. And they might not know that someone, but they just don't want to make somebody else's life a little harder if they can help it. This was manifested in that awkward tuck between those chairs. These two things say a lot to me about how we should live. I'm not sure where I picked it up or if it's a conglomeration of my religious, cultural, and family experiences, but to me, kindness matters. Be that kindness to others, to ourselves, something that I'm not always very good at, kindness to creation or to the earth, and an awareness of how everything we do affects those around us. This could be positive, negative, or neutral, but there is always some effect. These, to me, are just two ways in which we can strive to live together peacefully.